Welcome to Choose Better Living, where we come together to talk about books and subjects that leave a deep and lasting echo in each of our memories. At times, life can feel overwhelmingly difficult and strangely meaningless. This is a feeling that all of us experience from time to time. It is not a personal failure, nor a sign of weakness. In many ways, it is a natural byproduct of the incredibly complex neural circuitry inside the human brain. For some people, these emotions pass quickly. They come and go without leaving much impact. But for others, due to differences in how their neural circuits interact and reinforce one another, these feelings can become persistent. Instead of fading away, they tighten their grip. People may find themselves trapped inside a confusing emotional state that feels almost impossible to escape. Over the past several decades, scientific research has increasingly shown that the nervous system is directly connected to depression. The structure and function of different regions of the brain play a significant role. From an objective perspective, depression is influenced not by a single cause, but by the ongoing interaction of neural circuits within the human brain. These circuits can either reinforce negative patterns or help create positive ones. This is the foundation of the book The Upward Spiral by Alex Korb, a neuroscientist with a doctorate in neuroscience. In this work, Korb explains how specific neural circuits contribute to depression, drawing from extensive and well-established research in neuroscience. Rather than offering vague encouragement, the book focuses on how the brain actually works and how small changes can influence its patterns. The book begins by helping us understand why the brain falls into a negative spiral in the first place. Korb explains how certain brain systems interact in ways that make low mood, lack of motivation, and emotional exhaustion more likely. As this explanation unfolds, readers are also guided to recognize the fundamental difference between anxiety and rumination. Anxiety is often future-oriented, driven by uncertainty and perceived threat. Rumination, on the other hand, involves repeatedly revisiting past experiences and negative thoughts without resolution. As the discussion continues, the book sheds light on why the human mind naturally focuses more on negative experiences than positive ones. This tendency is not accidental. It is rooted in the brain's survival mechanisms. While this bias once helped humans stay alive, in modern life it often leads us into harmful mental habits. We become stuck replaying failures, dwelling on mistakes, and reinforcing emotional patterns that deepen our sense of despair. Korb also explains why people so easily fall into unhealthy routines and why those routines are so difficult to break. When certain neural pathways are repeatedly activated, they become stronger. Over time, these patterns make it easier to remain in a depressed state and harder to imagine alternatives. Through this lens, depression is not simply a matter of willpower, but a result of how the brain learns and adapts. By the end of this first part, readers gain a clearer understanding of what cannot be changed and what can be influenced. Some factors are beyond immediate control, but many aspects of mental health are flexible. This distinction is crucial because it allows individuals to focus their energy on areas where change is possible, rather than feeling powerless in the face of their emotions. From there, the book naturally transitions into a more practical direction. After explaining how the downward spiral forms, Korb turns his attention to how it can be reversed. The second part of the book presents concrete and detailed actions that can help individuals move out of depression and into an upward spiral. These actions are not presented as quick fixes or dramatic transformations. Instead, they are small, intentional behaviors that influence the brain over time. The book explores how physical exercise affects mood by altering neurotransmitter activity. It explains how making decisions, even small ones, helps restore a sense of agency and motivation. Sleep is examined not merely as rest, but as a biological process essential for emotional regulation. Korb also discusses the importance of building positive habits and how repetition reshapes neural pathways. He explains how biological responses such as breathing and posture can influence emotional states. The role of gratitude is explored, not as a vague emotional concept, but as a mental practice that activates specific brain regions associated with reward and well-being. Beyond the individual, the book emphasizes the value of contributing to society and forming meaningful connections. Helping others and engaging with the world can strengthen neural circuits related to purpose and belonging. Finally, Korb acknowledges the importance of seeking support from professionals when needed, recognizing that guidance and treatment can be a vital part of recovery. So, what exactly is depression? Unfortunately, up to this point, science has not arrived at a single, precise definition of depression. In practice, depression is identified not by one clear marker, but through a collection of symptoms that tend to appear together. These symptoms often include a persistently low mood, such as feeling sad, empty, or irritable most of the time. There is usually a noticeable loss of interest or pleasure in almost all activities that once felt meaningful. Changes in body weight can occur, either significant weight loss or weight gain without clear intention. Sleep patterns are commonly disrupted, with some people struggling to sleep at all, while others feel an overwhelming need to sleep constantly. Many experience ongoing fatigue and a lack of energy. Feelings of worthlessness or excessive guilt may become frequent and intense. Thinking, concentrating, and making decisions often feel unusually difficult. In more severe cases, thoughts about death or suicide may arise repeatedly. In the 1960s, depression was widely believed to be caused by a deficiency of the neurotransmitter norepinephrine in the brain. Over time, scientific attention gradually shifted toward serotonin as the primary explanation. However, modern research has made it clear that depression is far more complex than any single chemical imbalance could explain. Today, neuroscience shows us that depression cannot be reduced to one simple cause. It emerges from a much more intricate interaction within the brain itself. According to the author, there is no fundamental structural difference between the brains of people with depression and those without it. At its core, every human brain is made up of countless neural circuits. Some circuits are responsible for anxiety, others for habits. Some guide decision-making, while others process physical pain. There are circuits involved in sleep, memory, mood, planning, pleasure, and many other functions. All of these circuits are closely interconnected and constantly influencing one another. What differs from one person to another is not the presence of these circuits, but how they are regulated and how they interact. Depression arises from subtle differences in the way these neural circuits influence each other, particularly those involved in thinking and emotion. To make this easier to understand, the author offers a simple analogy. You can imagine the brain as an electrical system that produces sound through a microphone and speaker. A very small adjustment in the wiring or feedback can turn a soft whisper into an unbearable screech. The system itself is not broken, but the way its components interact has shifted. In the same way, people do not fall into depression because they are weak or flawed, as society often assumes. Depression develops because of slight differences in how neural circuits interact. A small change in these interactions can amplify emotional responses and create serious difficulties. The brain of a person with depression functions in a similar manner. Minor changes in how neural circuits communicate with one another can lead to widespread effects on mood, motivation, and perception. In the book, the author explains these interactions in detail. For the purpose of understanding the core idea, it helps to look at two major systems in the brain that play a central role. One of them is the thinking part of the brain, known as the prefrontal cortex. This region can be thought of as the executive center of the brain. It is responsible for planning, decision-making, impulse control, and motivation. This area has been essential to human evolution and development. At the same time, it can also generate anxiety, guilt, shame, uncertainty, and indecision when its activity becomes unbalanced. The other major system is the emotional brain, often referred to as the limbic system. This system governs emotional experience, including excitement, fear, and desire-based memories. It includes several key structures such as the hypothalamus, the amygdala, the hippocampus, and parts of the cerebral cortex involved in emotional processing. The hypothalamus plays a major role in regulating stress. The amygdala is deeply involved in fear, anxiety, and threat detection. The hippocampus is essential for long-term memory. All of these neural circuits are tightly interconnected. Although these systems exist in everyone, each person develops unique patterns of response to change and stress. Some people feel distressed when they are alone, while others need solitude to feel balanced. Some individuals feel energized by planning and enjoy adventurous and challenging lives. Others experience intense stress when faced with planning or complex tasks. A painful life event may push one person into deep suffering for years, while another person is able to recover more quickly. Because each person forms distinct patterns of thinking and emotional response, the same event can lead to very different outcomes. This is why some people are able to move forward after a major setback, while others struggle deeply. Depression, in this sense, is not a moral failure, but the result of how the brain has learned to respond. At this point, it becomes important to understand depression not as constant sadness, but as something far more complex. Many people assume depression simply means feeling sad all the time. In reality, depression often involves emotional numbness, emptiness, and a sense that feelings themselves have disappeared. People may feel hopeless and powerless. Activities that once brought joy, such as eating, spending time with friends, or engaging in hobbies, begin to feel dull and meaningless. Energy seems to drain away, and everything feels difficult for reasons that are hard to explain. Depression is particularly dangerous because it does not just pull a person downward. It also holds them there. Depression is a remarkably stable state. The brain tends to generate thoughts and behaviors that keep a person trapped in that condition. Exercise could help, but the motivation to exercise disappears. Good sleep would make a difference, yet insomnia takes hold. Spending time with friends could lift the mood, but nothing feels enjoyable anymore, and the desire to connect fades. Depression pulls a person downward like gravity. Mood becomes like a small ball sitting at the bottom of a bowl. No matter which direction the ball is pushed, it inevitably rolls back down. Several factors influence the neural circuits that contribute to depression. Genetics play a role, although they are not destiny. Certain genes can affect how neural circuits develop. For example, a specific gene involved in the serotonin system can influence the development of the anterior cingulate cortex and its interaction with the amygdala, increasing vulnerability to depression. Early life experiences also matter. Stress experienced by a mother during pregnancy or painful events during childhood can shape how neural circuits are tuned and how they respond to stress later in life. Current life stressors have a powerful impact as well. Work pressure, debt, unemployment, health problems, and troubled relationships can strongly influence emotional states and reinforce depressive patterns. Social support is another crucial factor. Humans are social beings. We are born to live alongside others and interact with them. A lack of meaningful relationships, having no one to talk to, or feeling isolated even when surrounded by people can all contribute to negative emotional states. Through all of this, the author emphasizes several essential ideas about depression. First, depression arises from a complex and diverse set of causes rather than a single source. Second, everyone carries some vulnerability to depression within them, although the degree varies from person to person. These differences exist because each individual has unique neural connections. Each neural circuit has its own pattern of activity and response, creating different tendencies toward depressive states. For example, depending on the sensitivity of anxiety-related circuits, some people experience intense anxiety while others do not. Depending on the connectivity of decision-making circuits, some people are naturally decisive while others struggle with choices. Importantly, experiencing depression does not mean that the brain is permanently damaged. And perhaps most crucial of all, it means that change is always possible. The brain retains the ability to adapt, reorganize, and move toward a healthier state. Because depression functions as a downward spiral, it also means that depression can be reversed. If negative changes can pull the brain downward, then small positive changes can push it upward and create an upward spiral. Through a series of research experiments, Alex Korb and his colleagues in Neuroscience discovered something crucial. Human beings are capable of changing the activity and chemical properties of their neural circuits through specific positive actions. Positive changes in real life genuinely lead to positive changes in the nervous system. These changes can be observed in brain electrical activity, in brain chemistry, and even in the brain's ability to generate new neurons. Over time, these biological changes feed back into daily life, making positive behaviors easier and more natural. For example, regular physical exercise alters brain electrical activity during sleep. This leads to reduced anxiety and improved mood. As mood improves, energy levels rise, making it easier to continue exercising. What begins as a single effort gradually turns into a self-reinforcing cycle. Gratitude works in a similar way. When a person practices gratitude, it activates the production of serotonin. This improves mood and helps weaken unhealthy habits. As emotional balance improves, the person naturally feels more grateful, which further strengthens the positive cycle. Any small positive change can act as the initial push the brain needs to begin an upward spiral. In the book, the author closely examines several types of small changes that can support this process. These include exercising the brain itself, setting goals, and making decisions, allowing time for the brain to rest, building positive habits such as meditation, massage, or exposure to sunlight, activating gratitude for what already exists in one's life, and seeking help and support from people around you regarding your current condition. In truth, none of these methods are entirely new. Many of them can be found across social media, in online advice, or through conversations with friends. What makes the upward spiral different is not the novelty of the methods, but the foundation behind them. In this book, every explanation is grounded in neuroscience research. Although the author uses simple and accessible language, the reasoning is clear and convincing. This clarity helps readers feel confident enough to take action and begin practicing small and realistic exercises that fit their lives and create meaningful change. The author also presents multiple approaches so that readers can choose methods that best suit their personal needs and circumstances. At the same time, Korb encourages readers not to expect these methods to cure depression completely. In reality, the techniques in the book are tools. They are meant to help initiate a chain of positive changes that gradually reduce the impact of depressive patterns over time. How long this process takes depends on each individual's capacity for recovery. It is also important to recognize the limits of these methods. For individuals with severe depression, especially when symptoms exceed personal control, these strategies alone may not be effective. In such cases, the author strongly recommends seeking professional help from a mental health doctor or psychologist in order to receive the most appropriate support. Toward the end of the book, the author offers several practical messages to those who are committed to creating change. The first message is to aim for a decision that is good enough rather than perfect. It is important to consider which method works reasonably well for you, but spending too much time weighing options often leads to hesitation and inaction. In each situation, it is better to choose a solution that is acceptable in the moment and then commit to doing it as well as possible. According to the author, doing something partially right is far better than doing nothing at all. When you allow yourself to accept a good enough choice, the dorsal region of the prefrontal cortex becomes more active. This area supports self-control and improves your ability to follow through. Instead of holding an entire plan in your head, the author advises focusing on one stage at a time. Learn to complete one task, then move on to the next. For example, if your plan is to exercise for 10 minutes each day, commit to doing that consistently. Do not exercise while constantly wondering when depression will disappear. Every meaningful change unfolds as a process. The author further emphasizes the importance of focusing on small steps before anything else. Identify what truly matters to you and learn to remove unnecessary details from your life. Rather than trying to change everything at once, focus on what genuinely supports your body and mental well-being. He encourages readers to ask themselves questions such as which activities make you feel the most fulfilled and which changes feel comfortable enough for you to begin right now. Finally, the author stresses the value of setting clear long-term goals. Choose 1 or 2 specific goals that are realistically achievable. These goals should include clear criteria for success so that you can later evaluate whether you have reached them. It is equally important that your goals inspire you. They should move you toward a better state. If a goal consistently pulls you downward, it may need to be adjusted or replaced. And if a goal feels too large, the author recommends breaking it into smaller steps and progressing gradually.